Welcome to the Upshot, multi-world disc golf podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I'm the editor, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield, and it is time to break down maybe the hardest tournament to watch this year so far, but still very interesting nonetheless. The Dynamic Discs Open, 4 rounds in Emporia, Kansas, concluding on Sunday afternoon. Ricky Wysocki, Kristin Tattar get another Elite Series win and cement themselves atop the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings as it stands going into kind of the next chunk of the tour, because we're heading to the West Coast at this point. We'll be out for Masters Cup, OTB, Portland, Beaver State, on going up the coast from California into Oregon. Josh, hello, how are you?
I'm well, thanks, Charlie. I'm, ready to talk about DDO, and I definitely, I played more disc golf this weekend than I watched, so I had to go back and catch up on some of the coverage so we could talk about it today.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it was a good week to skip some of the live coverage, if I'm just being perfectly honest. Tough conditions out there in Emporia, extremely windy. And here's what we're going to do today. We're going to do something a little bit different. We are going to just go through our top 20 stories of the tournament. So why 20? This is the 20th anniversary of the Glassblown Open / Dynamic Discs Open. Started back in 2003. Eric McCabe and partner started a B tier. The payout was about $1,700, and now it's over $70,000. We'll get to that in our purse watch. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Storyline, we're going to start with number 20 and work our way up to number 1. Hope you enjoy this. And we begin with number 20. Ricky's bucket hat. Josh, have we seen a new fashion trend emerge?
I don't know if it's going to be something. DD is going to sell bucket hats now. That there's money to be made here. I do think, as funny as it is, and as much as we've seen kind of some of the memes and images on the internet, Ricky even asking about it on his social media as well over on Twitter. I think it's fun. I think it's fun to see players kind of change things up a little bit with the apparel. And I think it makes for a little bit of just fun play on the sideline of the golf. Here's
the problem, okay? It's not actually a bucket hat. It's not a bucket hat. Okay? So Schoolboy Q wears a bucket hat. All right? A bucket hat has a small, thin
the real
brim
small visor
all the way around. Ricky wears a boonie hat, which is more of like a military style hat with the wider brim. Now, they're both, like an acceptable sun hat, but they are slightly different. And I get it. Everyone's going to call it a bucket hat, but technically it's a boonie hat. Either way, you're right. They're going to sell a bunch of them. Guess what? The same way buying a new disc isn't going to make you better, buying a bucket hat isn't going to make you better, but it is fun to wear.
Next on storyline number 19, we had a weekend of aces. Matt Bell obviously hitting the $25,000 ace in practice that we talked about. But then Jeremy Colling and Chloe Alice both acing hole 16 in the competition, which, shout out to them. That's exciting to get that kind of an ace.
Everyone loves to see Germ actually get an ace instead of just being there for somebody else's ace. Yeah, and you didn't even mention Blair Orne actually hit an ace in practice on hole 16 at Emporia as well. Unfortunately for him, he was a little early. The $25,000 ace pot hadn't started yet. He's probably been having nightmares about that all weekend. But yeah, I've never seen 16 get aced like this. And I was thinking, I didn't go back and look at the coverage. Have they had the wall along the back of the island in years past? Because I feel like that wasn't there when I was in Emporia for Worlds a few years back. I just don't remember seeing that.
I don't know how far back it is. I know last year it was there. I'm not sure how far back though you have to go until you find.
I kind of like it. It reduces the luck factor a little bit, and it also makes it more ace runnable. Let's be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely does. I saw Nate Sexton throw a shot that looked like it had real good potential, skipped over the wall after hitting the island. So yeah, but congratulations to the aces.
Number 18. Josh, we have now, I think it's fair to say, we've seen a big three emerge in both divisions. When you look at the Pro Tour standings and you just kind of think about who the top players so far this season have been, there's 3 that stand out in both divisions.
If you go over those points, the 3 really kind of differentiate themselves. So you have Ricky at 493, Chris Dickerson at 474, and Calvin Heinberg at 468. After that, you have to drop down almost a full 80 points to Gannon Burr at 389. Those 3 establishing themselves. It is in part by virtue of, the number of tournaments played. But a lot of those top 8, 10 guys have all played most of the tournaments, maybe missing one Elite Series. Paul, for example, not playing at LVC. Over on FPO, you have Kristin Tattar at 586, Katrina Allen at 523, and Paige Pierce at 511. You drop almost 100 points to Valerie Mondahano at 412 to then be the top 4. But yeah, the top 3 really have begin to put some distance between themselves and the rest of the competition.
Yeah, I mean, it unsurprisingly matches kind of what you would expect. Can we talk about something like you just glossed over this? Gannon Burr is in 4th place in the Pro Tour standings, ahead of Paul McBeth.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting. We'll talk more about McBeth later in this segment.
Next up, we had the preview for Worlds, the introduction of the Jones Supreme course, new course designed by Eric McCabe, played for the first 2 rounds at the Dynamic Discs Open. Charlie, what were your thoughts?
Well, a lot of conversation about this course. It's what we kind of expected, and we talked about in the preview. There was a lot of OB, and it punished people badly. And of course, a lot of that had to do with the conditions, which we'll discuss more later on. A lot of controversy about hole number 1, the island hole that kind of got things started. A lot of players laying up. Not really very many people successfully running the island and then getting a birdie. There were a lot of people going long and going out of bounds. Even some people who laid up still ended up going out of bounds, taking double bogey. It's an interesting way to get things started, that's for sure. But I don't know, that the course overall, I think it's hard. I think it unfortunately doesn't really do much to change my overall feelings about Emporia as a place to play disc golf. I think, unfortunately, it's just like, I think you have to embrace that it's like the windswept plains, and that all that OB is necessary to create the challenge, but this doesn't make for my favorite, most aesthetic disc golf experience.
On the other part that's kind of hard to me, James Conrad said that, you're going to go OB either way, so you might as well make sure you're a long ways up the fairway. So you had players that would just throw kind of expecting to go OB, but at least they advanced forward. I don't know if that's kind of the golf that I want to watch personally, especially in that wind, but that's what we got for Worlds. So
we'll talk more about the wind later on. What I will say is that when you look at the conditions that we had this weekend, it's hard to really assess what that's going to mean when we look ahead, because the summer isn't windy like this in Emporia. In fact, it's generally more still and hot and humid, but it's not going to be crazy windy. It could look like an entirely different course when you can throw your hyzer exactly where you want to throw it, and you don't have to worry about the disc popping up in the air and all that. So Interesting. Number 16, Haley King, Josh, has yet to podium this season. Is this cause for concern? She finished this weekend, I think it was 9th. I'm checking right now.
6th.
Yeah. Check that. So 6th place finish this weekend. 11 over par, 11 shots back of Kristin Tattar. Is this cause for concern?
I think it's got to be time to start worrying a little bit. I know she took time off from the tour. She got her wisdom teeth out, and then due to inclement weather, she chose not to travel to another one of the tournaments later, in that stretch. So she misses all of the Texas swing, and then as well Music City and Open at Tallahassee, not coming back till Champions Cup. I mean, she's trending the right way. Champions Cup 11th, Jonesboro 10th, DDO 6th. I think OTB in Portland could go really well for her. Those are courses that feel like they set up well for her game. I think it might be fair to have concern that, even if you kind of select the best performances thus far in the season, Valerie Mondahano has been playing better than Hailey King. And at the beginning of the season, that's not the prediction that I would have made.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to ding her for skipping tournaments. Like, I'm just talking about where she's actually showed up.
Exactly.
Her best finish is 4th at LVC. That's obviously good. 6th place here, it's fine. But like, we're talking about somebody who I think we expect to see winning regularly. And Hailey King won this tournament DDO last year and looked really great doing it. She had moments of good play this weekend, but overall, I don't really think we've seen the best out of Hailey King yet this season.
Storyline number 15. This was the biggest Pro Tour payout of the season, excluding Champions Cup. Obviously, that's a major. It's time for our purse watch.
It is time for our purse watch. So, Josh, what you said is true. This is the biggest DGPT payout so far this season. $77,951 purse. That comes in about $5,000 ahead of Jonesboro and Texas States and LVC. Pretty much all of the Pro Tour stops have been in the same ballpark. Nothing above 80,000, nothing below 67,000. So, it's not like this is orders of magnitude bigger than others, but all around very good. $40,000 in added cash. The MPO winner got $8,600, slightly more than the Jonesboro Open, where the winner got $8,500. FPO, biggest payout outside of Champions Cup this season, easily $5,000. Jonesboro had $4,500. So we're seeing that kind of the war between tournaments to have higher payouts, and DD comes through. Last year, the purse was $69,130. So this year's payout was 12.8% higher. So another tournament that's seen a growth in the purse in 2022.
I think I'm trying to decide what's more impressive, having the highest purse or having the highest increase in purse change. So Waco, for example, is at the lowest so far at 67,000, but they also managed to increase their purse from 2021 by 22%. Which one do you think is a better sign for a Pro Tour event? Actual dollars or the ability to kick it up as needed?
It's easier to move your purse percentage change higher if you start from a low base.
That's a fair point.
So for Waco, they were coming in at a low point, and there's pressure on them to get that number up. And they're like in the ballpark, but it's been the lowest Pro Tour payout so far this season, which is interesting because they also had the most spectators we've seen. At least anecdotally. I mean, we don't know the actual number of ticket sales at all of these tournaments, but it was packed at Waco. Like, they sold out of tickets. So I don't know. I think overall, at the end of the day, what people care about is the actual dollars. So a percent increase is a nice thing to be able to say that you did. But, if Ledgestone has a 22% increase, then we can talk about that being pretty impressive.
All right. What's the next storyline then, Charlie?
Oh, it's my turn. You're totally right. Number 14. We talked about the big threes. One of the other really interesting storylines that we're seeing happening here and really throughout the season, emerging names in FPO. It is not just Paige, Katrina, and Kristin. We are seeing other players really start to rise up from like relative obscurity in some cases, maybe somebody who's been around for a year, but even some players who are really not names that we talked about at all before this season.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at just visually at the Pro Tour standings right now on UDisc, the top 10 finishes are bold, and those are peppered all the way down through 20th. But through the 20th place in the Pro Tour standings, you have a lot of faces, including this weekend. Emily Beach having a 3rd place finish. That's a great finish. Ella Hansen, we've seen, but it's good to see her up there. Kat Murch, we've talked about her season several times. Maria Oliva, who we've seen, in the past, but is having what feels like and has shown a couple of finishes to be. And I think what's big, Holland Hanley, those are names who, Macy Vela Diaz, have good finishes, fifth place, couple podiums in that mix. It's not bad. But what's significant is we're seeing them on lead card coverage. They're shooting really excellent rounds and jumping up onto lead card, maybe not always sustaining it for the entirety of a tournament, but that's okay. I mean, like you said, these names are ones that are coming out of relative obscurity and, names that you saw, but now are recognizable names. And when they come on coverage, you know who they are because they're getting camera presence. And that's something that's good for their brand. It's good for their sponsors, and it's good for the FPO scene as a whole, as you see more and more players developing the skills to kind of match rounds with some of the best.
I mean, yeah, you go back to pre-pandemic and like Ella Hansen wasn't playing disc golf. I'd never heard of Emily Beach.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even sure if Valerie Mondahana was really playing at that point. Macy Vela Diaz hadn't emerged. Natalie Ryan. I'm just going down the leaderboard of this weekend above the cut line. Cynthia Ricciotti, Kat Murch, Holland Handley, Chloe Alice. Like, you could go down through this whole, just the people who made the cut line this weekend, and like they were not on tour 3 years ago.
Yep.
They may not have even been playing disc golf 3 years ago. And now they're finishing on the podium. Okay, so like this is pretty amazing stuff, and it's made for a much more compelling FPO, just overall leaderboard and like experience than we had a few years ago.
Storyline number 13. MPO had a crazy top 10 this weekend. I mean, one of the wildest that we've ever seen. I'm going to give a quick rundown of the names, Charlie.
Okay.
Ricky Wysocki takes first. That one, I think, is the most normal of them all. Then
Sure.
You have Simon Lizotte in second. In third place, you have a log jam of Vino Makla, Aaron Gossage, Logan Harpool, Jason Hebenheimer, Brody Smith. Then Chris Dickerson and GT Hancock are tied at 8th, followed by Calvin Heimberg, James Conrad, and Gannon Burr, rounding out your top 10.
Pretty crazy. By the way, it's Jake Hebenheimer, not Jason. I know that was just a random, a little quick mulligan for you.
Jason, it says Jason on the PDGA page, which is what I have up.
Interesting. He must go by Jake. Everyone's right. Everyone's right. Is Jake a nickname for Jason? I don't think
Not that
I've
ever heard.
Because it's Jacob, right?
No. I don't know. I had the PDGA
normally it's
page
Jacob to Jake. Anyway.
Right.
Someone will email us about the etymology of names in the United States. Upshot at ultiworld.com if you're the names expert. Yeah, crazy. Absolutely. Like, we're seeing obviously most of these players are finishing on the podium for the first time in their careers. Gossage,
yes.
Harpool, Hebenheimer, Brody. So here's some stats for you. Number one, this was the largest podium in Elite Series and Major history, with 7 players finishing in the top 3 because we had this big logjam at third place. 3 previous events had 6 podium finishers. 2021 Idlewild, 2016 Beaver State, and a 2007 USDGC. But we've never had 7 players finish inside the top 3, including ties. So that's a crazy stat on its own. And how about this, Josh? At the 5 previous Elite Series and Majors for this season, there were 11 unique podium finishers. So 11 different players at some point made the podium. At DDO, 6 players made the podium for the first time this year, and 5 of them, it was their first ever podium for Vino, Gossage, Harpool, Hebenheimer, and Brody. Courtesy of Stat Mando. Amazing. And we could talk more about what this means and why that happened. Is it weather? Is weather the great equalizer?
Well, Charlie, we're going to talk more about wind in a later storyline, so we'll come back to that one. I think there's a bunch of things that, as we'll kind of talk about in other storylines that will develop it. The one thing I want to know, and maybe Statmando, I don't know how to pull these numbers exactly. Logan Harpool and Jake/Jason Hebenheimer are rated 1006 and 1005 respectively. I want to know who the lowest podium finish on an Elite Series / Major rating wise has been, and like because 1006
those must be the lowest from this season. Like I don't even feel like I need to look that up.
I think it's got to be the lowest from last season too.
Probably.
Those are because Connor
O'Reilly.
Connor O'Reilly was like 1016 or 1017.
Yeah, around 1020.
Yeah, it was just under the 1020 mark, and I remember that was pretty notable. But to be in the single digits in the thousands it's a low rating. So shout out to those guys.
Well, those boys are from the Midwest.
Yes, they are.
And they said, I forget which one of them said it. They're like, I played in wind worse than this.
Yeah, I think it was Logan.
And you see all these touring pros rolling into town, and then everybody's like, it's so windy. And they're like, we out here. I love it. Storyline number 12. Ella Hansen podiums for the second straight tournament. Where is Ella Hansen right now in the sport, Josh?
Ella Hansen is the most exciting player to watch over the next 3 seasons. Like that's where Ella Hansen is. You know, I know that title probably could be given to Haley King. She's someone that kind of demonstrated. The difference though is that I think Haley King has shown us rounds that have shown her, you know, not necessarily, I don't want to say ceiling, but have shown us her full potential, right? We've seen the record-setting round at GMC last year.
The GMC round, that was insane.
Yes, that's exactly it. We've also seen, you know, her lows. Ella Hansen has shown us what I feel like is, you know, third gear, and she's got 3 more that we're just waiting to see. To play this well, and let's be real, you know, Jonesboro, that's a course that sets up very well for Ella Hansen's game. Long par 5s that are eagle opportunities for someone with her arm. DDO also has some of that distance factor, but to have that control in a very high OB, you know, that requires a lot of discipline. And then as well, to have the wind and that factor play in as well, to have that and demonstrate that kind of control still from Ella Hansen, I think shows really good development. You know, she had 17 OB strokes, same as Kristin Tattar, who's in the lead. It's not like a Drew Gibson where she shot a ton of OB, but just happened to overcome it. She played just as controlled as anybody else, and that bodes really well. Ella Hansen, exciting player to watch.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying it since we've seen her come out on tour. Like, the sky is the limit. You know, she's the longest thrower after Paige Pierce and probably Jen Allen still on tour, and has simply continued to get better at the other elements of the game. And you're starting to see some consistency begin to develop. And that's why you're seeing top 3 finishes on a regular basis. And remember, she did this last year, right? She finished the 3rd place at U.S. Women's. So pretty exciting to see and like to imagine like what could be for her as she continues to improve as a disc golfer.
Without a doubt. So next storyline, Charlie, these are the courses that we will be playing Worlds at in a couple of months this year. What did you think of this tournament as a Worlds preview?
I mean, I'm glad we got a look at the courses. So just, you know, as a note, Jones Supreme, they'll play twice, and then they'll play Emporia 3 times, and the men and the women alternate on the courses, and then they both play Country Club on the final day for Worlds. The conditions are almost certainly going to be very different. And so I don't really know how much I feel like I can take away from this tournament as it relates to being a Worlds preview, because the wind was so intense that it alters the play to the point that it's probably a little bit difficult to take what we saw this weekend and really extrapolate it forward. I think the results from Sunday, when the wind was down a little bit, are probably the best indication of what we could see. That's why I think Katrina Allen has a good chance to do well at Worlds again. I think she's going to be in a great position to try to win her 2nd straight World Championship, because, you know, we saw her just shred Emporia. Now, obviously, she had some big mistakes. We'll talk about that in a bit. But for the most part, you know, she comes out, she shoots 6 straight birdies to open her round. Like that's an encouraging sign. I think there's little bits and pieces you can take away from this. Obviously, Ricky and Kristin, like the fact that they were able to persevere and, win against a great field, even if a lot of the top players had completely fallen off the pace, still shows you that they're going to be forces to be reckoned with in Emporia in August.
So over in FPO, there were 5 rounds that shot under par on round 4. That was Katrina Allen with a 5 under, Ella Hansen with a 3 under, Kristin Tattar with a 2 under, Emily Beach with a 1 under, and Paige Pierce with a 1 under, which happened to be your top 5.
Yeah, power players.
Power players. I think, that bodes really well for Emily Beach and Ella Hansen for Worlds, that they were able in those good conditions to continue to shoot well. Over in MPO, Simon Lizotte, Kyle Klein, and Anthony Barella tie for the hot round at 6 under.
Power players.
Power players.
Maybe Kyle not quite as much, but yeah. And Simon not to the extent that he once was, but.
Right. I mean, and then after that, Ricky, Vino Makla, Aaron Gossage, Chris Dickerson, Bartosz Kowalski?
Kowaleski, I think.
Kowaleski? Thank you.
Yeah.
I apologize for that. Congratulations. That rounds out your 5 unders, and then names that are pretty recognizable at 4 unders with Calvin Heinberg, James Conrad, and Nathan Queen. I agree with you. I think round 4 is a good indicator. People are shooting well there. And I really think that, if it does have some weather and some inclement weather at all, Kristin and Ricky are going to be in good form to win their world championships.
All right, we are going to take a break. Everybody grab a little drink, grab a little popcorn. Top 10 coming your way next. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. And you know what? If you want to get the custom pack that you envision in your mind's eye, the pack of your dreams, you can do it at any time. Go to PoundDiscGolf.com and you can get your custom Octothorpe, your custom Octahall, your custom Carlton, your custom Toolbox, and their custom pack builders are now open all the time. No more waiting for drops or hoping that you get lucky. You can just go build your pack. You can tinker with it for a while before you hit the order button, but you can check it all out on their website and you can just design it exactly how you want, from the zippers to the main flap to the bottom of the pack, exactly what you envision. PoundDiscGolf.com. Welcome back to the Upshot. Our top 20 stories from the Dynamic Disc Open continue with number 10. Josh, go for it.
Yeah, for 2022, we have our first European MPO podium finisher, Vino Makla, ties for 3rd place at the Dynamic Disc Open.
Yeah, first European MPO to get on the podium this season. And, we talked about this a lot coming into the year. Could we see the European MPO players be competitive and get up inside the top 10, top 5, top 3? And it's Vino, maybe one of the more established European names, that is the first to actually get on the podium. And not only that, it's his first ever podium finish at Elite Series or Major. His previous best finish was 4th place at Memorial in 2020. And this was his first podium finish period in the U.S. at any tournament in the U.S. So congrats to Vino. And I'm not sure that I have much more to say about it than that. I think it's cool to see him be up in the mix. At the end of the day, overall, Ricky still was 8 shots ahead. It's not like Vino was really battling for the win here, but neither was anybody else. It was kind of Ricky on an island by himself. Right. So still a really, really strong performance from Vino, and it's cool to see a top European name up the top of the leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the only other thing I want to add is it felt inevitable. I mean, we've seen hot rounds from the Europeans. We've watched them play over in Europe, and we've seen the skill level that they have. We've seen their rating. And, while they haven't been competing against the top competition due to COVID, this felt like an inevitability. I think it came a little bit earlier than we were expecting, but shout out to Vino, and I don't think this is going to be the last time we see a European on the podium.
Now, didn't we have some kind of over-under about European finishers?
We did. You said that we would not have a European on the podium in MPO this season. I took the over. And
over 0.5.
So here's my question for you, Charlie. Do you want to go double or nothing?
Oh, like on a 1.5?
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, make it a 1.5.
Okay, so how is this going to work? So like if he becomes the only one to finish top 3 this season, then you don't get any points.
I get 0 points.
Okay, so it would subtract the point that you've won.
Correct.
And otherwise you get an extra bonus point. Let's do it.
Okay.
I got some work to do. Double or nothing, over under 1.5 MPO European players on the podium at Elite Series or Majors this season. I've got the under.
Charlie, haven't you heard about walking away? Just cutting your losses.
Just got to keep playing. That's right. I'm down $100 at the blackjack table. It's like the variance is going to swing my way eventually. All right. So let's go to number 9. And number 9 is this was a tournament that was filled with DNFs. We had some players drop out before the tournament because of injuries. We had some players drop out during the tournament because of injuries. And we also had kind of a mini COVID outbreak during this event. And ultimately, 4 players end up testing positive for COVID-19 and having to drop out of the event. Kristin Tattar actually went to the emergency room. He was feeling so ill. So that's happening during the tournament. He ends up testing positive for COVID. Colton Montgomery also, he posted on Instagram, he's like, thought he had a sinus infection. Well, if you think you have a sinus infection right now, you should probably take a COVID test, just to put that out there. It turns out he does have COVID, so he drops out. Kona Panis did not test positive for COVID, but she dropped out just to be safe because obviously she's spending a lot of close contact time with Colton. And then Matt Oram also ends up testing positive after the Pro Tour went through all of their contact tracing and had anybody who had qualified as a close contact, which means 15 minutes within 6 feet over a 24-hour period, even if you're outdoors. They all had to take COVID tests. Basically, everybody else tested negative, but Matty O, unfortunately, who was I think he was on the lead card or in 5th place or something like that, had to drop out. Everybody had to withdraw. So there were just tons of DNFs, people getting hurt as well. And so kind of just a grueling tournament from an illness and injury perspective.
Yeah, I mean, and some of those injuries also included some names, some bigger names and some names that we were excited about. Paul Ulibarri posting on Instagram that he's been dealing with a couple injuries. He's going to be taking some time off until the Preserve in order to rest and get better. And then Gavin Rathbun also, dropping out, says that he's going to go back and get that shoulder checked on, make sure that everything's okay there. We wish nothing but the best for these guys. It's definitely hard to see so many players leave with injuries. Do you think this is something that the Pro Tour needs to take into consideration when you do back-to-back-to-back Elite Series events?
Look, yes, they need to be considering this because having players missing time for injury is not good for the Pro Tour. It's not good for the player, obviously, but it's also not good for the Pro Tour.
Right.
COVID is COVID. Yes. I don't think, let's be honest. For the most part, we've had almost no incidents on the Pro Tour all the way back into 2020 when they resumed the tour. And so having 4 people get COVID, that's just happening.
Yes.
People are going to get COVID right now. And that's just kind of where we're at in the world. Everyone was vaccinated and boosted and whatever, and then everybody got COVID during Omicron wave. So I don't know what you're supposed to do to avoid it. I've had COVID. So on the injury side, there's different situations here. Gavin is coming off of shoulder surgery and just maybe wasn't quite ready to come back full force. Here's the thing. The Pro Tour has been pretty clear about this. The trend is going to be towards more tournaments happening, more Elite Series tournaments happening, and players having to pick and choose which ones they want to attend. That's where we're headed. That's what all the indications have been. Jeff Spring talked about it in the press conference before DDO. So I think we need to mentally prepare ourselves for having Elite Series 3 times a month. I'm making that number up, but like, we're not going to have that many weekends off long term. Now, I don't necessarily know that that's the right strategy, but I do think that it's where we're going to end up. And what it's going to mean is that players are going to skip events and then they're going to go to other events. And I'm not sure that I'm a big fan of sort of like diluting the competitive pool kind of like on the average, because I can figure if they, how many Elite Series is it this year on the Pro Tour? Like 12 or 15 or something?
I think
I could look the number up, but it doesn't really matter. Like, let's say they double it, right? They get rid of the Silver Series, or they reduce the Silver Series, or it becomes its own thing and like the pros don't play it anymore. But then there's like twice as many Elite Series. The average quality of an Elite Series event is going to drop because players are not going to go to all of them. So then I think it's like the cream will still rise to the top. You're still going to see people show up to Ledgestone. You're still going to see people show up to Maple Hill. And like people will get excited for those tournaments, but I don't necessarily know that I like the strategy. I'm uncertain. But what I do think it means is that the Pro Tour is telling players, you have to choose for yourself what your workload's going to be. And if there's 3 back-to-back tournaments, you don't have to go to all of them. And ultimately, I think that's what you're seeing happen this weekend, is that people are like coming to the realization that either because of this grueling stretch where we had 4 tournaments at WR, or 4 rounds at WR Jackson, then long drive, 3 rounds at Jonesboro, then long drive, short turnaround, 4 rounds in Emporia in the brutal wind, players are starting to feel the effects of a long season.
Yeah. Anyway, topic to expand on for another day. Our storyline number 8 now, though, Simon takes another podium finish this weekend, taking second place. This is exciting to see. Disc golf is better when Simon Lizotte is playing it.
Yes, it's great. Just to have him at the tournament is great. And he comes off the course and he pops into the broadcast booth with Terry and Nate, and everybody's yucking it up and everybody's having a grand old time. And I mean, Simon's just such a great personality. Has like a warmth and friendliness about him that I think a lot of other pros really don't. And I mean, this is his best finish since 2020 when he took second at the Preserve. And then of course it's back-to-back podiums, as you said.
Right.
So, I mean, are we seeing the emergence of like good Simon Lizotte again? I mean, that would be great if that's the case. Like this, if you're a Simon Lizotte fan, and who is not, let's be honest,
that's
you
true.
have to love what this could mean for his chances to go get a world championship.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't care. You can tell me all you want about, he's not the same after the elbow, blah, blah, blah. But like, he just finished second. He's hardly played this season, and he comes out in the wind and he like holds it down.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you got to be excited about what he could do at Worlds in a couple of months, even if he doesn't play anything until then.
Here you go, Charlie. I'm gonna give you my preview pick. I'm putting Simon in my podium for OTB Open.
Wow.
Right now, barring injury.
Is he registered?
I know he said, I saw a post saying he was going to go to California, but let me just double check real quick. If he is registered, barring injury or something that makes him drop out.
No, he is registered.
He's registered. Simon's
he's
going.
Playing. I mean,
Simon's
he's
going in there.
Yeah, he's legitimately playing this season. Like,
yeah.
He took that time off early in the season. He's been home with the fam, and he's going to be at OTB, Portland, Preserve, Idlewild, European Open, D-Glow. He's registered for Ledgestone. I mean, he's registered for everything.
Yep.
So let's go. Simon's back, baby.
Simon's back. So there you go. It's so fun. I love having Simon back.
Number 7 could have been higher. The wind. Every player in the field went out of bounds. Every single player. And if you look to the top 12, the top 10 players in the top 10, no player went OB fewer than 12 times over the course of the tournament. That's in the top 10. All right. The wind was insane, Josh. We're talking 25 mile per hour sustained. I don't think I've watched a tournament like this in a long time.
I know I definitely haven't. Statmando gives us a great stat here, and this talks a little bit about kind of the wind and some of that brutality. Tattar won with an even par score. And the last FPO Elite Series or major event to have no players shoot under par was the 2021 Masters Cup.
Yeah, so, on a with a par that made no sense.
Right, exactly. So
yeah.
Disc golf is not. I'm going to echo Steve Andrews again. Disc golf is not designed for this weather. Our equipment, baskets, discs are not designed to be played and handle this kind of weather and these winds. And it made for some really, really difficult to watch disc golf. And I know there are some people who said, I'd love to watch the pros struggle, right? It was humanizing, it was refreshing, whatever you want to say. It's way better than watching the birdie fest. That's fine. That is a legitimate view to have on this tournament. It's not one that I hold. If I wanted to watch, a couple of players get absolutely brutalized by the wind, I would go to my local doubles league, right? I don't need to turn on TGN to watch players get totaled by wind. And I don't care if it's, Calvin Heimberg or the 1,000 rated guy who plays open at my local tournaments. It looks the same to me. It's not fun to watch. And so I wasn't a fan of it. I don't think it makes for good viewing experience, but welcome to an outdoor sport that's dependent on the conditions.
I'm just going to roll us into our number 6 storyline because it's very related. This was a brutal tournament to have to watch. I mean, I enjoyed this tournament from a viewing perspective less than anything we've had this season. Not even close.
Yeah.
The only thing that salvaged this tournament was a good battle in FPO down the stretch. Otherwise, it would have been like, oh, I didn't watch anything this weekend? Well, all right. I'm good with that. You had to be a real trooper to kind of grit your teeth and get through this one after, already having watched back-to-back tournaments on the last 2 weekends. 4 rounds of this was just tough, man. I mean, the players were not enjoying it. Just the broadcast. It was just like, oh, another OB. Oh, another OB. Like, another OB. Oh, interesting. Players just looking sad the whole time. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a challenge. And shout out to the players in the Midwest who legitimately know how to handle these conditions better and outperformed their skill, their rating by quite a bit in order to end up, on the podium in some cases, like with Logan Harpool. It is an adjustment that you have to be able to make. I think it's part of the reason we saw some success from the former Ultimate players. Ella Hansen and Brody Smith. Like, when you play Ultimate, you have to learn how to deal with the wind and have excellent angle control and spin on your disc, because if you throw the disc even slightly wrong, you're crushed. There is no overstabling up in Ultimate. You don't just get to pull out the super meat hook driver in order to fight the wind. You have to throw an understable lid and try throwing that into a 25 mile per hour headwind. It's almost impossible except for the very, very best throwers. And, I think if you hone your skills in Ultimate doing that, and you have the mentality to deal with that, it can help you translate that better to disc golf just the same. And I think we saw some players were weak-minded this weekend. Let's be honest. We saw some weak-minded players out there getting eaten up by the wind and not persevering through what everyone was dealing with. It's not like some people weren't going OB. Everyone was going OB. And you had to be able to say to yourself, okay, how do I adjust and still try to put myself in a position to be successful? Because par and bogey was a good result on a lot of holes this weekend.
We saw a lot of talk in the Discord and emails about whether or not this tournament has, an asterisk on it. Is this, a legitimate win? Or is this gonna, or are we gonna look back and say, oh yeah, but that was the one with all the wind? I think that I think two things can be true at the same time. I think that a tournament can not hold much weight in my mind in terms of relative importance to whether that be season finish or, world's preview or what have you, and also still be considered a legitimate win in the resume of those players. It feels almost like Waco in previous years when we didn't have a spring major, when someone wins Mako and we say, nice win, like that's great job for them. But because we don't have any tournaments with real significance for the next 6 months, we didn't really add a lot of weight to that. That's how I feel about this tournament, right? Great win. Nice job, Ricky and Kristin. You guys played well. You had, like you said, a tough mental game, and it's a good win to take down. I don't know how much weight I give to that, though, in the long term. So by no means is it illegitimate, but I also don't think this is going to be considered the most important tournament looking back in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a bunch in our subscriber bonus segment that we did live after the tournament on Sunday night, which we do after every Elite Series event. So we hope you'll become a subscriber and join us for those live reaction shows. And one of the things that we discussed was this concept of the asterisk. And we got an email from Jeremy. And Jeremy said, there was a lot of talk on the Rapid React show about putting an asterisk on the MPO event, but not the FPO. I think this shows a bias towards the players in the fields. The only reason there was no asterisk for FPO was if you look at the top 5 to 10, they were all recognizable names you would expect to be towards the top. On the MPO side, there were a lot of names we've never seen or rarely see, which may have made it seem less compelling to some. So that deserves an asterisk. At the end of the day, literally everyone played in the same conditions. The overall strength of field was no worse than any other Elite Series event this year. And goes on to continue the discussion there. I mean, it's a good point. I think we definitely, in the React show, talked a little bit more about, some of the names that we saw at the top of MPO. But I do think that even the FPO field, like ultimately, I don't put an asterisk on this tournament, but I do think that you have to look at the results and say, this isn't going to be reflective of what we see at Worlds.
Yep.
Right. And that doesn't mean it's an asterisk, but it does mean that like it's not necessarily reflective of normal disc golf conditions. I think that's fair to say.
Yep. Completely agree. Number 5, and there's argument that this could go higher up, but this has been, a lot of chatter this weekend of otherwise a little bit slow. Mr. Macbeth misses the cut for the first time in his career. And now we don't have a lot of cuts in disc golf. So, right, we got to qualify that statement. You brought that up a little bit in the live show, Charlie. But still, I mean, it's a bad weekend.
I mean, how often has Macbeth missed the cash? I mean, it's happened. At USDGC a couple years ago when he had hurt his ankle, he played just horrible and missed the cash. Because this missing the cut was also missing the cash. But I don't care. First of all, there should be more cuts. We've talked about this. Yep. Second of all, yes, it is shocking. And Macbeth shot 10 over in the front 9 of round 3. Let me say that again. He shot 10 over in the front 9 of round 3. How many times have we been like, oh my God, Macbeth is 10 under through 9? I feel like I've tweeted that out 3 or 4 times. Macbeth is on a crazy heater. He's 10 under through 9. Could he shoot 18 down again? Honestly, in some of his 18 down rounds, he might have been 10 under through 9. I can't remember now where his par came, because one of those 18 under rounds, he had 16 birdies, 1 eagle, and 1 par.
Right.
But whatever, you get the point. This was probably his worst 9 holes of disc golf of his entire career. It's difficult to look that up from a statistical perspective. We don't have UDisc going back that far, but I feel confident in saying that. 10 over through 9 holes for the greatest player in the history of the sport. And I honestly, unless there's something going on physically with Macbeth, which it does seem that there is, right? So for one, he's not really throwing forehand right now. Mm-hmm. One of a number of top players who's not really throwing forehand right now. And so that is a problem. That is a problem, especially when you're dealing with wind, where there are going to be circumstances where forehand is absolutely the right choice And if you're not willing to throw it because you're dealing with an injury, you're just putting yourself in a suboptimal position to try to get up safely onto the green and make your upshot. But like, regardless, I think Macbeth is he's just a little bit on the struggle bus right now, like relative to hit where he normally is. I mean, as great of a start to the season that he's had, he was dealing with some issues getting off the tee. We've seen that crop up in a few rounds. We've seen him kind of blow himself out of tournaments with bad rounds. And now we're like at the logical conclusion of it, which is that he gets just obliterated by a windy course and just gets smoked. Like, how many OB strokes did he end up having this weekend? Let's look it up. He was just totally off of his game this weekend.
You know, while you're looking this up, Macbeth shot 2 sub-1,000 rated rounds this weekend. Round 2, 990 rated. Round 3, 993 rated. Like that should be enough there to tell you that, you know, just how poorly it went. Looks like he had 19 OB strokes across 3 rounds.
Yeah, and in that round 3, in the front 9, he went OB 7 times. And I mean, but look at the numbers. Like, he was 61st in Circle 1 in regulation. I mean, yeah, it's not just the OB. Like, honestly, round 2, he didn't go OB that much. At Jones, he didn't go OB that much. And he shot decently in round 1.
Yeah.
4 under. Like, avoided a lot of the punishment, but just got smoked by Country Club. So, pretty crazy. Pretty crazy to see.
Yep, it is.
On to number 4. Ricky wins it for his sister. Take a look at this. Before the tournament, posting on Instagram, this week is for my sister. Remember last year, she passed away. He had to actually, he left Emporia to go be with his family and then came back, played the event, didn't win, but remember he had the incredible throw in on 16 and, you know, Raptor legs it down and the fans were so pumped up and he was incredibly emotional. And now he comes out here representing DD as their big off-season signing, posting about this, like, this is for my sister, and going out and getting the W. That's pretty amazing, Josh.
And it's just such a fun, I mean, it's such like a heartwarming story to root for. You know, you get these in sports all the time that you want to root for the player because there's that added significance. Ricky, obviously, you know, one of the best guys in the sport. He's had the incredible signing in the offseason, like you mentioned, and then for him to also have kind of that backstory that goes along with this tournament in particular makes it just so exciting for him. It's an easy storyline to root for. It's an easy one to be thrilled for. And even if, you know, Ricky's not your favorite player, no one's upset about Ricky winning this weekend by any means.
It cements him at the top of the Disc Golf Pro Tour standings. He picks up almost 50 points on Chris Dickerson and passes him back in the rankings. Chris, of course, winning the 150 points at the Champions Cup, took over first spot, but Ricky's back on top. It's his second Pro Tour win of the year after winning at Texas States.
Third storyline. Brody Smith works really hard to prove Charlie wrong and lose him another over-under. The weekend after we make an over-under on Brody's cash line, Brody gets his first ever podium at an Elite Series event. This could arguably have been the number one storyline of the weekend. This has been the talk of a lot of conversation on social media. What do you think, Charlie?
Well, I loved it. Brody, somebody tweeted at Brody, I don't know, before the skins match at Eagles Crossing. And it was like, I don't know what the tweet was. It doesn't matter. Something about him like not playing that well. And Brody's like, I guarantee I'm going to finish in the top 15 at my next event. Talking about the skins match. And he retweeted that. He quote tweeted that after this weekend saying this aged well. And indeed it did. I mean, look, how many times do we need to see Brody show you that he is an incredibly talented athlete? I mean, this guy's in his mid-30s. He only started playing disc golf 2 years ago, and he's now top 3 at an Elite Series event in terrible conditions, and probably endured the wind better than just about any player at the tournament. I mean, he's coming off the course talking about how he's having a great time playing disc golf, and other players are like whining and complaining and hating their lives. Got to give credit to this guy. I mean, he wins a couple $1,000s in payout. I think this already puts him like above how much money he got paid out last year.
Yes.
And so pretty awesome stuff from Brody. And like I said before, I think his background in team sports and his background playing Ultimate was a real advantage this weekend, both in sort of dealing with the kind of the uncontrollables of the weather, but also just like the physical skill required to throw a disc effectively in this kind of wind.
Yeah, so, Statmando says it gives us a stat that this is higher than his total 2022 earnings and increases his career Elite Series major cash by approximately 34%. Smith 2022 earnings are now 28% of the way to Stokely's 15,500 winnings at the Skins match. So Statmando,
he took a big step forward. Yikes.
We're about a third of the way there, Charlie. Taking another over-under on you. Next storyline. All trilogy winners. This is number 2. Kristin and Ricky both go into this offseason. They sign massive contracts. Ricky obviously getting the 4-year $4 million, getting the signing bonus as well in the Bitcoin, getting his own line of discs. Kristin Tattar, breaking the record for the known and published FPO. We assume that Paige Pierce is making more than that, but in terms of that base contract, that announcement was one that was had reverberations around the disc golf world for its significance for FPO, 4 years, $500,000. And then for both of them to come out to DDO's flag, DDO, the DD's flagship tournament, and to take down the win Trilogy must be thrilled today.
I mean, think about where we were a year ago with DD at this tournament. Like literally Chris Wickland, who writes a tournament talk column after Elite Series events for Ulti-World Disc Golf, wrote last year, and upset a lot of people at DD because he talked about how where are DD's players at?
Yeah,
the MPO, it was a nightmare. I mean, their home tournament, they're not even in the ballpark of the top 10. It was a wasteland. And I mean, big drama, people all mad. I mean, I understand why they're mad, but at the end of the day, like what Chris said was right. And they knew it. And so what did they do? They went into this offseason and they made it happen. They locked up Kristin, obviously Latitude, not DD, but a lot of business entanglements there. They lock up Kristin Tattar, who's, I don't want to spoil what we're going to talk about in a second, but great player. And they get Ricky. They get Valerie Mondahano. They get Mason Ford. They bolster this team in a major way. And then they come back to DDO a year later, and it's W's for Ricky and Kristin. I mean, that is... if you're Jeremy Rusko, you're loving life right now. Because you're like, and they got the merch to sell now. They're going to sell the bucket hats, and I mean, it's just all this explosion in disc golf, and they make smart moves in the off season, and it pays off. And it pays off at home. It feels in extra Emporia. Good to have it happening in Emporia.
Yep.
So I think this is it's a pretty big deal for them to have this kind of success so quickly, and not that it's a surprise. Like when you sign arguably the number 1 player in the world right now in Ricky Wysocki, you're going to get wins. But I think it's extra symbolic to have it happen in Emporia.
Well, and you mentioned it. They've got the merch. Ricky is just dropping his Saki Bomb Slammers, the new approach disc. Kristin's got the Orbit Grace. You're just watching these discs pop up, and that in Emporia, those things were selling like hotcakes. So financially, even if this weekend wasn't the best in terms of viewership, it's still gonna get DD. They have to be just so thrilled with this weekend.
I mean, a lot of successful storylines for Trilogy overall this season. We've already talked a lot about Valerie Mondahano, and they got Valerie on the cheap.
Yeah.
So let's move to number one. Our number one storyline of the weekend. Closing out this chapter of her U.S. tour, Kristin Tattar beats out Katrina to win her second straight Pro Tour event, and I think very clearly solidify herself as the number one player in the world. And I don't really think you can dispute that she's having the best season right now in FPO. Has not missed a podium. Now has won back-to-back Elite Series events. This feels a lot like what she did last year when she came over to the U.S. on a much shorter little swing and, started off playing well, but not her absolute best, and then ends up winning a bunch late. Now she heads back to Europe for a bit. She comes back for the Preserve on the road to the U.S. Women's Championship, and then she'll head back over for European Open. But Kristin's basically playing the large majority of the U.S. Tour this year. But this does end this swing. She will skip the West Coast and has some time back home in Estonia. But, it's number one, she gets the win again. Number two, she beats out Katrina Allen in a big time battle in the final round.
Yeah. It was such an exciting, I mean, honestly, you said it right. This salvaged coverage. I tuned in. I watched the live coverage for the FPO round because I wanted to watch that finish, and I'm glad I did because it ended up being a close one that was exciting to watch. Could you imagine, though, if Katrina had won Champions Cup? I mean, she would be having we even going into this tournament, we would be talking about her as the undisputed number one. And now, like you said, I mean, this is cemented for her. Statmando tells us that Tattar's win was the largest comeback by position in FPO Elite Series or Major history. She went from 22nd after round one to winning the tournament, or to be first in round two.
Place in round two.
It took one round to jump from 22nd to first. If Katrina Allen had won, she would have had the largest comeback, ending round one tied for 18th. So, look, I don't know what more you need to see from Kristin. She is an elite player. She is the best player in the world right now. And disc golf is better because of it. And the FPO side is a more, I mean, I think we can, especially with this weekend, FPO has been the better disc golf to watch this season of the two divisions.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at it overall, like sort of holistically, like where have the battles been? We've had some great finishes in MPO, but we've also had some kind of like blowout snoozers. Mm-hmm. And to be fair, Kristin had a blowout snoozer at Jonesboro. Yep. But I do think we've had a lot of battles in FPO, more so than in MPO in some cases, and we've had pretty good intrigue up at the top of the leaderboard. Certainly, I don't think it's even in dispute that this is the best season of FPO that we've seen in 10 years. I mean, maybe ever. I mean, I think it's a little bit about like what you like. I think some people, if you really like the two horse race, like the best two players head to head every weekend, battling, and kind of everybody else is an afterthought, then maybe you prefer disc golf from 5 years ago when we had Ricky versus Paul and we had Kat versus Paige. But for me, I think I prefer a little bit more of the, different names up at the top, but still those kinds of battles down the stretch. And, look, it's not like Kristin Tattar is so far out in front as number one that no one can catch her. Like, no. Like if Paige wins 2 straight events, like she will be having the better season. Like it's still close, but the consistency of Kristin, along with the 2 wins now, I think has to put her above Paige, even though Paige, stole one from Kristin, basically a Champions Cup. Mm-hmm. I mean, Kristin gave that away. Like if Kristin had won that tournament, like she would be having one of the better starts to a season we've seen in a long time. And you could still say that she is, but regardless, I don't think there's any way you can argue that she's not playing the best disc golf right now in the division.
Well, if you get rid of the open,
there's the yawn, folks. There it is.
Yawn.
There it is. Yawn count. We're gonna have to put a little counter on the thing.
If you look at, if you take out the open at Belton, which Kristin scored 18.75 points, so it put Kristin around
Silver
570.
Series.
Right, Silver Series. It's the only event that Kristin has played that Paige has not played. So take that one out. You put Kristin at about 570 points for overall points, and Paige is around 510. 60-point difference. She's got still almost 50 points on Katrina Allen. With it's her season is so good. She's so good this season.
Yeah,
and she is a lock. She is a lock more than any player I think we've seen in a long time for podium finish. That if you don't put Kristin on your podium week in and week out, then you're throwing away points because Kristin is going to be there.
Yeah. Look, here's her Elite Series and major results so far. Third, second, first.
What more do you want?
Shut it down. Let's go home.
Shut it down.
Shout out to Dirk Nowitzki. That's a real deep cut for my NBA people. So that will do it. And we haven't really talked that much about the individual rounds of the disc golf this weekend because it didn't really feel like the kind of the primary story in some ways. But look, Katrina Allen comes out, shoots 6 straight birdies in the final round. And Kristin only goes 2 under through that stretch. So here comes Katrina. And then they both take a bogey and a double bogey on the next 3 holes. Kristin gets a birdie to, kind of like give herself some padding. But then Katrina on 12, 13, 14 gets 3 straight birdies and has, taken the lead. And has kind of taken a commanding lead, it feels like. But then Kristin birdies 15. Katrina with the brutal double bogey on 16. That puts Kristin back in front by a stroke. They both birdie 17. They both par 18. And that's all she wrote. So Kristin kind of feels like she ended up on the other side of what happened to her at Champions Cup, where it was like Katrina really had control of the round and gives it away on 16 with the double bogey. So
that missed putt,
brutal,
so bad. It's
brutal.
But welcome to having an island hole that helps add drama at the end.
Certainly does. So fascinating weekend overall, and I'm ready to be on to the next, though. Let's set this one aside. Send us in your thoughts and questions. We're going to certainly do some mail in the next couple of weeks. We have some time off before the OTB Open. And we'll look forward to talking a little bit about kind of this next stretch of the season, the West Coast swing. Upshot at ultiworld.com is the way to find us. And don't hesitate to become a subscriber. It's less than $4 a month. discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. You get access to all of our subscriber bonus segments here on the Upshot and a whole lot more. Catch up on our live react show from this past weekend, which if you go to the article on Ultiworld Disc Golf, it's right below the post. Just hit subscribe, just log in, boom, it's right there. You can get the private RSS feed and get it in your favorite podcasting app. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you on Thursday right here on the Upshot. Don't miss our interview tomorrow.